There's nothing worse than getting eliminated in week 1 of your NFL Survivor pool. We'll discuss and debate the 7 games you should be considering in week 1 of your 2022 NFL Survivor pool, and it's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Michael, I'm so excited to talk NFL football, specifically NFL Survivor pools. And if you're not familiar how it works, it's real simple. You have basically 2 rules. One, you're going to pick an NFL team to win every week. However, once you select that team, you can't use them for the rest of the season. So if they win, you move on. If you're the last person that survives, then you're the winner.
Eric, before we talk about the top games and reveal who our picks are, I'd like to bring in a special guest who just happens to be visiting me. Is that all right with you?
Sounds good.
All right. I'm a proud papa here. My son was starting quarterback of his high school football team in Northern California, and also an all-league quarterback. So I think he's a little bit qualified, but we'll hear what he has to say about his experience. Coleman?
Hey, how's it going, Eric?
Hey, good to see you, Coleman. Getting a younger and I'll just say smarter perspective to keep us honest. What do you know about the NFL?
Well, I'd say I'm a little bit less gray than the two of you as well. But yeah, like my dad said, I played football growing up. I played for my high school. It was a blast. And I've been watching football since I can remember. And I've been doing fantasy for just about 10 years now. So I'd say I know a thing or two about what we're talking about today.
Let's take a look at the 7 key games we think you should be focusing on. 5 of them and all of the top 3 are road favorites, starting with Indianapolis, 8-point favorites at Houston, Baltimore at the Jets, and San Francisco at Chicago, 7-point favorites. Cincinnati's at home, 6.5-point favorites over Pittsburgh. Tennessee, 6-point favorites at home over the New York Giants. And then New Orleans on the road, 5.5-point favorites at Atlanta. And then on Monday night, Denver, 4.5-point favorites at Seattle. Guys, I'd like to start with the Seattle-Denver game. Excuse me for a minute. Let me put this. This is outrageous, guys. How? Okay, so let me talk about this game. And yes,
Eric, have Seattle been good since you had that jacket?
Yeah, Super Bowl champions. That's how long I've had this jacket. But Denver and Seattle last year, you can see I'm biased, folks. They had the same record. They're both 7-10, and I get it, folks. They had a QB swap, and the Seahawks had the worst end of that. Locke is now on the Seahawks, and the Wilson is on Denver. And that is why I would expect that Denver will be better than 7-10 and the Seahawks worse than 7-10. But Michael, you talk about your coaching experience. For 10 years, Pete Carroll has coached Russell Wilson. He knows what makes him comfortable, what makes him uncomfortable. And I think that could be the X factor. And that what makes me uncomfortable, besides the fact that this game is in Seattle, putting your survivor life on Denver. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no way I touch this game. The 12th man in Seattle is so impactful. It's the first game of the season. You know, no way I touch this game. As much as I do think that having Russell Wilson on Denver will make a huge impact, this game, no way I touch it. Coleman?
I mean, I definitely would save my Denver pick for later. They're playing Houston next week, so that'd be a lot safer. And so it's Russell Wilson's comeback game against the Seahawks. He could have a lot of nerves coming back home. You never know.
I think you make such an excellent point, Coleman, about the fact that they play Houston next week. Now, sometimes with future value, you go way out in the future. We don't know what it's going to be. This is next week. They get Houston. Houston is the longest of long shots, according to win the Super Bowl, 250-1. So just save them for one more week if you're dying to use Denver. 2 of the major weapons from last year are not available to Russell Wilson. Noah Fant is actually on Seattle, and Jerry Jeudy's out for the year. So I'm a hard pass. Play Denver at your own risk. Sounds like all 3 of us agree on that.
Yeah, very much so. Just a real touch. You already touched on it, but future value, first week is when you don't want to be too aggressive on the future value, but that Denver game next week is in Denver against Houston, and they have the Jets on week 7 at home as well.
But before we do that, we just wanted to say, if you appreciate our NFL Survivor content, smash the like button, share it with your friends. And if you haven't yet, please hit the red subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future content. Let's see if we have any interest among the panel in the next game. New Orleans, 5.5-point favorites at Atlanta. Michael, I've been eliminated by New Orleans before, so I'm a little queasy about this game immediately due to that. But folks, I think Atlanta is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're rebuilding. Gone is Calvin Ridley. Gone is Russell Gage. And who's throwing the ball to them? Gone is Matt Ryan. Instead, it's Marcus Mariota, and the only wide receiver of any value is their rookie, Drake London. So I'm a little concerned about their Atlanta's offense and really concerned about their defense. One of the worst in the NFL last year. They gave up more points than anyone other than the Lions and Jets. New Orleans, on the other hand, I think they're on the way up. Their passing game was in shambles last year. They barely passed the ball less than any other team, but now they have Michael Thomas back. They have Jarvis Landry they added, and they have the rookie speedster Chris Olave. So I think they're going to have a lot of weapons. I got to admit, I kind of like this game a lot more than the Denver game. What do you guys think?
What I would say is there's no reason to really save New Orleans. They don't have any other games on the schedule other than Atlanta at home in a week that I think there's a couple other options late in the season, week 15. They do have Seattle at home on week 5, so maybe that's something to look at. There's a couple other games worth considering in week 5. I agree with you. This is a tempting game because of just the difference in the two teams. Atlanta's defense is really at an all-time low, and losing Matt Ryan, I think, will be very impactful. But I'm just not sold on Jameis Winston, and I really get nervous about New Orleans and Atlanta. As you know, although it's been funny, New Orleans has had more struggles at home against Atlanta than they have on the road. Again, it's a week 1. It's a rivalry game. I'm a little bit timid. Coleman?
Yeah, I can see why you'd be timid, but like Eric was saying, Atlanta is going to be so bad this year. I mean, they got Kyle Pitts. He's okay, but their defense, they're not going to be able to stop the weapons that New Orleans has. So I'd say it's pretty safe. If you want to go with them, I would be supportive.
And just one other factor we haven't talked about is pick popularity. I expect that this will be a low percentage of the people will be selecting this pick. So if you want to fade the public, this is a good idea. Because if we do get an upset, and it's possible because we don't have a spread over 8 points, we can have an upset of these top teams. You could be looking really strong, as a lot of people have missed, assuming that the Saints pull it out. So if you're a gambling person, so far, this is my favorite pick. The next game is Tennessee, 6-point favorites over the New York Giants. Coleman, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I think that the Tennessee Titans are going to do great in this game. I mean, you think about what they lost at wide receiver, right? And Julio Jones and A.J. Brown are their 2 big guys that they lost. When you think about what happened last season, Julio Jones did not do as much as was expected of him, I think, coming into this season. So that wasn't much of a loss. I mean, A.J. Brown is a big loss for them, but really their entire offense is centered around Derrick Henry. And he had, a full off season to recover. He's going to be fine week 1. I mean, if you're Tennessee, I'd just give him the ball. He's going to have over 100 yards rushing and carry the Tennessee Titans to a win. So
I really like this game. I'm a really big fan of Mike Vrabel. I think he does a good job with his defenses, and I think he will do that again. This New York Giants team was really bad last year. There's really nothing to look in the rest of Tennessee's season that is very interesting until you get to the very end when they got Houston at home, and that's arguably a rivalry game, and who knows where Tennessee will be at that point. So to me, this is a very tempting game.
The Giants did improve their offensive line in the offseason. They went from absolutely horrible to below average, I think. So I'm not saying they have a good offensive line, but it has been improved. Can that spark them? Their wide receivers were so bad last year, but they were injured. Will a healthy Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, with Kenny Galladay remember how to play football again? I'm not sure. But there's enough question marks here that I can't. I don't feel as comfortable in this game as I did with the New Orleans game. All right, we've knocked down 3 teams, still 4 to go. But just a quick reminder that in each of the last 4 years, we have run an NFL Survivor poll, free to enter, specifically for our subscribers. So if you haven't yet, hit that big subscribe button. And we will give you more information about our poll this year, closer to the beginning of the season. All right, folks, let's go to the next game. It is the Cincinnati Bengals, 10-7, against their division rivals, 9-7-1 in Pittsburgh. If we're just looking at the records, these teams were really close last year. It's just one went to the Super Bowl and one got eliminated in the first round. So you kind of forget that. Cincinnati did dominate Pittsburgh when they played last year, beating them 24-10 and 41-10. I always want you to talk a little bit about what do you think is going to happen with the Pittsburgh's quarterback situation.
It's not a huge loss for Ben Roethlisberger to have moved on. He was past his prime, no question. Anyone would say that. And I'm such a big fan of where Pittsburgh's running game can go. So I think that's the way to to really adjust. But and I don't think the loss of Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be that big of a deal for Pittsburgh as well. Deontay Johnson continues to be the key player there on the wide receiver spot. So other than the fact that this is a rivalry game, I know I'm talking mostly about Pittsburgh. I think this clearly is Cincinnati's game to win, but there's some other games that are more interesting to me. And Cincinnati's got Atlanta when they'll have their legs back under them. It is always a little challenge coming back from a long playoff season, and Cincinnati hasn't done it for years. And so I think there could be a little bit of a hangover effect. And so I guess that's a little bit of the reason why I might be a little nervous here. Coleman?
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing about Juju Smith. I think a lot of people would argue actually losing him was an upgrade for the Steelers because he could be somewhat of a distraction for them in a few different ways on social media. But for Cincinnati, their 2 best players on offense, arguably, are Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And they're both super young still. I'm a little bit nervous of having to repeat what they did last year. I think they're going to have a lot of high expectations from Bengals fans and just football fans overall because they're fun to watch when they're playing really well. So I don't know, since they're so young, the nerves could get to them. And I mean, Cincinnati is definitely the favorite, but I personally am not going to pick them with my survivor pick.
Yeah, one of the best things that Cincinnati did in the offseason as far as improvement is they've improved that offensive line. 3 new starters. I think that's going to help Joe Burrow with more time and create some holes for Joe Mixon. I just would like to see that offensive line together for a game. It scares me. And I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I don't think this is a game that I personally can endorse. Before we get to the top 3 games purely by the spread, we want to hear from you guys, our audience. Tell us your week 1 NFL Survivor poll pick and why in the comment section. All right, let's look at San Francisco. They are touchdown favorites at Chicago. Coleman, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I really like this pick. I mean, San Francisco is going to have a great year, in my opinion, and they're going to want to come out strong, especially with Trey Lance starting the season. I think he's going to be really excited. He's got plenty of offensive weapons. I mean, George Kittle is a beast on a tight end, so just give the ball to him. He's going to bulldoze all the cornerbacks they got back there in Chicago. I mean, Chicago's defense also is not great to be able to stop the weapons San Francisco has. I don't think they can do it. And their defense. I mean, San Francisco's got one of the best defenses in the league, I think. And there's not much on Chicago to offer that can really run over San Francisco. So I think it's kind of going to be a blowout. I'm big favorites with San Francisco right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Chicago,
Eric.
Chicago's rebuilding, folks. They're rebuilding on both sides of the ball. Khalil Mack is gone. Allen Robinson, their star wide receiver, is gone. Who'd they replace him? Byron Pringle. Okay. Yeah, I get it. I understand, but I just have this question for you guys. Little question. How much do you trust the QB Lance? He only has played effectively in 3 NFL games. On the road at Chicago, are you nervous? I'm worried. If you told me that he doesn't make any mistakes, then I know that the Niners are going to win. That's what I'm nervous about. Michael?
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime you got a new guy, in the helm, but it does help that he's a dual threat quarterback. It is a little easier for a dual threat quarterback to, overcome his nerves. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, and this is something that he's strong with, is game planning. I make sure I get him out of the pocket. I let him run a couple of times just to get loose, give him some easy passes, make sure he's got the nerves underneath him. There's not weather at this time of season in Chicago, so you don't really have to think too much about that. I think this is a pretty safe bet. I see why Coleman is excited about it. The Bears are so bad.
How about Baltimore, 7-point favorites at the Jets? Michael, what's your take on that one?
So this is the pick that I like most this week. Joe Flacco revenge game with Wilson out. I don't think he'll be back. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think Joe Flacco's going to start.
So, but the Ravens, let's face it, they had a very disappointing year last year. They should have, they really should have won the division. At least they had the team built up for that. Lamar Jackson was, I think, bottled up a little bit. I think some of that was coaching to make sure he didn't get injured, nervousness there. Their running backs, were all injured like 3 weeks into the season, so they had nobody to get the ball to. Yeah, they've lost Hollywood Brown. I know that has some people, concerned, but they still have Mark Andrews, who's always been Lamar Jackson's go-to. And they have a very, very good defense. Some people think this is the best team in the AFC. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I think the Jets are the second worst team in the AFC just because Houston's so bad. I like Robert Saleh. I think that, he was a great defensive coordinator, and I'd really like to see him do that for the Jets like he did for the Niners. But, you could tell how frustrated he was by some of his comments when Zach Wilson went down. Coleman?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much more to add. I think this is just as much about the Jets being so bad as it is about the Ravens being pretty good. I mean, the Ravens have high expectations to live up to this season after, like you said, such a bad season last year. And Lamar Jackson's great. I mean, he gets a lot of hate from people for not being a quarterback, but I really think he's going to have a great year this year. And there's nothing the Jets can do. I mean, on offense or defense, Joe Flacco, I don't have a lot of high hopes for him this year. So
look at this, the Jet bashing. And I haven't said a word, folks from New York. Okay. I'm telling you, the Jet dog has got to be depressed with this conversation. The advice that we've given you in our NFL survivor pool strategies, which you can see that video if you check the link in the description, and I'll put a card up now. One of the things we tell you have to do is make sure you're up on all the late breaking news. We're filming this over 2 weeks before the season starts. And the one thing I want to know is J.K. Dobbins going to start? The last I heard, Gus Edwards probably will not start. That's okay. I just need one of those two. I don't want to completely rely on Mike Davis as the running back. All right, let's go to the Indianapolis Colts, 8-point favorites at Houston. It was 2 years ago today that I looked into the camera and I said, make your first week 1 pick be the Indianapolis Colts. They are facing the worst team in the NFL, the team that is the longest of long shots to win the Super Bowl, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I was right. Jacksonville went 1-15. Unfortunately, the one win they got was beating the Colts. Here we go again. The Colts again face the longest of long shots in Houston. They're 250-1, and no one's even close. 150-1 is the New York Jets. Let's just talk about last year. These same Indianapolis Colts absolutely destroyed Houston in both of the two games that they played, 31-3 and 31-0. So if you ever can feel good, Houston has given up the second most rushing yards last year than any other team. And oh yeah, the Colts have one of the best offensive lines, and Jonathan Taylor, maybe the best running back in all of football. So I really like this matchup. Also, the Colts have improved on defense, adding all-pro Stephon Gilmore to their lineup. And I think they improved at quarterback, moving from Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan. And that's what burned me. Stupid Phillip Rivers made too many mistakes last year and 2 years ago. So I'm feeling pretty good about this pick. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree that Matt Ryan is an upgrade from Carson Wentz, just because of where he is in his career. I mean, I think if you compare them when they were both in their prime. But I'm a little nervous about Matt Ryan under the helm. But they're just going to run the ball and cram the ball down Houston's throat, which is the right approach. It should be an easy win. The only reason I like that Baltimore game slightly better, and again, I don't think you should use future value too much in this first week because it's uncomfortable, is because the future value that the Indianapolis has. They have a couple games early in the season where they should take care of business as well, and they'll be at home. And this isn't Houston. I do think Houston did make some improvement on the offensive end. I think David Mills is if I got his name correct, is okay. He's not as bad as some other quarterbacks in the league.
That's quite an endorsement.
Yeah, you like
he
that?
Is okay. He's better than some of the quarterbacks in the league.
And so, this should be a slam dunk. It's a pretty safe pick, but it does come down to coaching sometimes, and that's why I think Indianapolis also lost that first week.
Okay, so this is what I'd like to do. I think let's reveal our picks, and Coleman, as our guest, I'll let you start off. If you had to make your decision today, who would be your Week 1 NFL Survivor pick?
I am going with the Niners, Eric.
The San Francisco 49ers against Chicago. And Michael?
Yeah, just a caveat, and you kind of alluded to it. We're a few weeks out, so some stuff could occur to make this different. But I would go with the Baltimore Ravens versus the Jets.
I love this. We got 3 different teams. I very much would like to go New Orleans because I think there's going to be very low pick popularity, and I can recommend you guys do that. But honestly, if it was my Survivor life, I would chicken out. And I wouldn't. But you guys didn't say. I would pick the Indianapolis Colts. I haven't learned my lesson from 2 years ago. First of all, we all picked road teams. So that's against some people's philosophy. I don't think that that's a problem. But I'm the only one that picked a division rival. How concerned are you guys that about a division game?
Early on, I actually don't get as concerned in division games as I do later on in the season. I do think it is impactful, especially as it could be a spoiler situation, but it's early on. I think we're pretty aligned, but picking different teams, which is kind of fun.
All right. We want to remind you to check out our NFL Survivor Strategy Show that we list the 3 most important considerations in making your NFL Survivor picks. That's on the screen now, as well as a video where we talk about NFL DFS. And until we see you next time, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.